Hello guys, welcome or welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Mona Zaveria and I'm a natural hair enthusiast, and today I'd like to talk to you about the 4 things that can help you determine your hair type. But before we get into the video, please subscribe to my YouTube channel and be sure to hit the notification bell so that you can be alerted whenever I post a new video. So let's get into it. Why is it important to know your hair type? Well, it's important because one thing, it enables you to know what products to use, and number 2, it enables you to create a hair routine that can help you in your healthy hair journey. In my previous video, I talked about the 3 steps that you can use to create a healthy hair journey. So I'll really appreciate if you go and look at the video because it's a very informative video. So the 4 things that I'm talking about: number 1, it's your curl pattern and hair texture. Number 2, it's your hair density and hair thickness. Number 3 is the production of sebum on your scalp, and number 4 is your hair porosity. So let's start with number 1, your curl pattern. But before I explain about curl pattern, let's understand the hair anatomy. Your hair is made up of 3 parts: the inner part, the middle part, and the outer part. The inner part is called the medulla, the middle part is called the cortex, and the outer part is called the cuticle. So the medulla is made up of strong ionic bonds that determines your curl patterns, and these ionic bonds that I'm talking about is the disulfide bonds, salt, and hydrogen. So the stronger the disulfide bonds you have, the more coiler or the more kinkier your curl pattern is. And people from Africa or black people tend to have very strong disulfide bonds, so they have coilier or kinkier hair. Also, these bonds tend to detach from each other whenever water is applied or heat. So it's really important to always use water when detangling your hair so that to prevent breakage. And also it's important whenever you're buying any product to buy a product that the first ingredient is water, because it can enable you to moisturize your hair, especially when you go for deep conditioners, when you go for moisturizers and leave-in. It's important to buy products that the first ingredient is water. And also, heat can be used for healthy hair journey, but you have to use it responsibly. I also want you to understand that when you use heat irresponsibly, it can also lead to you damaging your curl pattern, and hence can lead to weaker hair and break off eventually. So it's important to use heat in a very moderate way. So the types of curl patterns that we have the I curl pattern, we have the O curl pattern, we have the S curl pattern, and the Z or the L curl pattern. Personally, I have the O and the L curl pattern. There is no actually a scientific term to determine your curl pattern. It's something that you observe over time. So don't drive yourself crazy trying to take different parts of your hair from your head, trying to test that time. So let's move to hair texture. Now, hair texture refers to how loose or how tight your curl pattern is. In other words, it's also called shrinkage. Now, the looser your curl pattern is, the less shrinkage you'll have. The more tighter your curl pattern is, the more shrinkage you'll have. And also, in the natural hair community, people tend to think shrinkage is a bad thing, but no, shrinkage is not a bad thing. It's just a measure of how healthy your hair is, because any hair that gets in contact with water, anybody with an African or a black person, whenever their hair gets in contact with water, it tends to shrink, or in another word also called freeze. So it's not a bad thing. But if you want to do styles like wash and go and twist out, things like that, I would always advise you to do it on stretched hair, because if you don't do it on stretched hair, your hair will shrink and eventually you'll have frizz and your curls won't pop out. So that's one thing to keep in mind whenever you're doing styles. Yeah, and there's actually no way to determine your texture. It's something also you observe over time. Personally, I have my curls are very tight, so yeah, so I have a very tight texture. So yeah, that's it. And I also want you to know there are some things that you can do to your hair that can actually destroy your hair texture permanently, and that's like using chemicals such as hair dyes, relaxers, and texturizers. So those are not good things for your hair. So when you have tight curl pattern, I would always advise you to not constantly always have your hands on your hair, because it also leads to breakage. Your hair loves being in a protective style, so putting your hair in a protective style can really help your hair to grow out. So that's one thing you should really consider when you have tight hair, when you have tight curl pattern. So hope you understand. So yeah, so braids and twists and cornrows are your best friend when you have tight curl pattern. When you have loose curl pattern, of course, you can get away with wash and goes. When you leave your hair to air dry without molding it into a specific shape, it can cause your hair because our hair is already coily, so it will cause more tangles on your hair, and it will be hard to detangle and comb it out. And that's why you should never leave your hair to dry out during wash day without you putting it in a twist or in a braids or cornrows style. So yeah, so hope I make sense. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is your hair density and thickness. Now, hair density is how many hair strands you have on your head, while hair thickness is how small or how big your single strand is. Now, it's not a specific test that can be done to determine your hair thickness or density. It's something also you look over time. You just notice thick and dense hair, or if you have thin and less dense hair. So it's just an observation. Then another thing I would also talk about density and thickness is, for example, when you have very thick hair, you always want to use thick conditioners, deep conditioners, leave-in. That's when you can really moisturize your hair with. And when you have thin hair, you don't want to use the heavy butters and deep conditioners, because it can weigh your hair down. So yeah, so that's also something to consider. So there's some people who are naturally born with thin hair, and that's okay. And having thin hair, you can really get away with a lot of things like wash and goes. You can thinning length very easily. So yeah, it has its advantage. But one of the questions I always get is, how can I take my thin hair to become thick? Well, if you're naturally born with thin hair, that will really be hard to do. But if you once had thick hair, then it became thin, now you can transition back. And the reasons why thick hair can become thin is, number one, your health. So if you're not really healthy, one of the signs that your body gives when you're unhealthy is that your hair starts to thin out. So when your hair is thinning out, one of the things you should look into your health. Number two, maybe you are mechanically doing it. For example, when you're doing tight braids, you're doing tight cornrows, those styles can really thin your hair, guys, and break your edges. Yeah, another thing is when you're using chemicals. When you're using relaxers, when you're using hair dyes, and texturizers, those are not good things for your hair. They can really thin out your hair. In fact, I think I'm going to make a video on the effects of relaxers on your hair. So yeah, be on the lookout for that. Then another thing is aging. So for example, when you're aging, your hair tends to thin out, and it's nothing to be alarmed about. Your hair won't really thin that much, but you'll just notice a little bit of thinning. So that could be another reason your hair is thinning. So what are the things that you can do to take a thin hair to become thick? Number one, you have to eat well-balanced diets. I talked about this in my previous video, so go and look at my previous video. Number two, you can use biotin. But I'm not an advocate for using biotin, because one thing, our body is very complicated, you know. When you increase one hormone, you offset other hormones. I don't know if I'm making sense. So when you use biotin, you basically increase the amount of DHT in your body. So that's why you start growing hair very fast when you use biotin. But before you use biotin, please go and check out with your doctor. Be sure it has been prescribed by the doctor, because it can really most people complain when they use biotin that their skin starts having acnes, and hair is growing out from everywhere. So you really want to be careful with biotin. So please check with your doctor. Number three, another thing you can do, you can start doing hair treatments. So things like deep conditioning, especially with protein deep conditioners, that can really help your hair to grow out and become thicker again. So yeah, because mostly our hair is made of protein, keratin to be specific. So yeah, so you want to do a lot of protein treatments, but don't forget about moisturizing treatments. Another thing that you can also do is incorporate the use of herbs and roots. So we all know that herbs and fruits contain very nice vitamins, and they can really help you with your hair journey. I also talk about on my Instagram how you can use onion water to see new growth on your head. So yeah, to increase growth on your hair. So yeah, so you can go and check that out. So hope I made sense. Actually, this video has taken more time than I expected. Right now it has actually taken 12 minutes. So in my next video, I'll be talking about sebum and hair porosity. Again, if you feel confused with the information that I've just given out, please be sure to comment and I'll get back to you. Or we can connect over on Instagram and just DM me and I'll help you out. I always enjoy helping other women out. It makes me feel really good. So yeah, so let's talk there, and yeah, and be on the lookout for the next video. I think I'm going to release it next week on Tuesday. So yeah, thank you for watching and thank you for subscribing. Yeah, also like and share. So yeah, bye guys.